Hey guys, thank you for stopping by. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and share. And I hope you enjoyed this interview. All right, Engineer Emmanuel Ogwuche, Senior Consultant at Nextier Capital Ltd, joins me right now. Hello, Emmanuel, and welcome to the program.
Thank you, Nancy. Good morning.
Good morning. Just answer me. You guys are the people in this space.
Yeah.
Why is there been a worsening blackout incessant? You stay in Aba. I don't know if it affected you yesterday.
Yeah.
It's been on for a few weeks. Why are we having this blackout?
So, it's an interesting time in the sector. A couple of things are happening almost at the same time. If you retrospectively look at what your last guest was saying, basically the FX is a mess and it has a kind of an impact on the whole value chain, basically. So, for power in particular, there are a couple of things that affect power quality and sustenance of power supply. First among them being that the grid as it stands currently is just one grid that is serving the whole nation entirely, starting from Bayelsa down to Benin-Kebbi and the rest. So just one grid that's bifurcated into about 10 different transmission regions. And these regions are interconnected in a very radial format. Radial in the context that typically power is transmitted in either in radial form, which is a straight line, or in a ring form, wherein if it's a ring form, you have some form of redundancy within the network. So that is to say, if I say my power station is in Buari and I supply Gwarimpa, and Gwarimpa is connected to central area and back to Buari, if there's a problem between Buari and Gwarimpa, there should be a way of augmenting for shortfall from another point. But when you now have a radial system, wherein is a one-way, traffic, and there's an issue on the line, naturally is kind of disconnect the whole circuit, and of course the grid tends to shut down. So that is the predominant scenario of the sector. The other key issue is that power generally is dependent on generation. All right, so you have got to have enough generation to be able to meet the demands of the market. And if that gap is not properly maintained, there's a way it causes, it affects the frequency of the grid. And if the frequency drops below a particular volume, it has a way of also tripping the collapse of the network. So the last bit is that there's this common fallacy that the distribution companies are rejecting load, right? So if there's no proper load offtake from the system, and it's kind of electrically unbalances the network, it also leads to another kind of collapse. So having said all this, the grid is very fragile right now because a lot of things are affecting it, like I said. There've been a lot of work done on reinforcing the grid. Within 2005 and now, I'm particularly sure that, like NDPH, for instance, have done almost 6,000 kilometers of transmission networks, and there's a lot of money being put into those areas. That, if you put the numbers in terms of finance numbers, it gives about $2.5 to $2.4 billion that have been put into transmission infrastructure in Nigeria currently. But while those efforts are being made, there are some other efforts that are supposed to be done simultaneously, i.e. installing like a SCADA system. The SCADA system gives you visibility of the network, shows you exactly what is happening in the network. That way, if there are issues, you could put immediate plans in motion to restore normalcy within the network. That system is yet to be fully installed, and that is why the grid is very, very unstable. So basically, TCN and virtually all the stakeholders are managing the grid from a blind spot. So they're not they're not sure exactly what is happening on the grid until...
If I get you right earlier, you said just one is working. Is that what you said?
No. So what I mean is, in terms of
because
grid,
I know that I think you have about 23.
We have 23 power plants in Nigeria.
Yes.
23 power plants
that are connected to the
contracted to the grid.
Yes.
And those 23 is giving about 4,300 contracted capacity to the grid. Now, these power plants are predominantly within the gas belts, which is in Niger Delta region,
area,
and part of Lagos and Benin and all of that. But so if energies are being pushed to the grid, because the grid is the one grid, it's supposed to be electrically balanced between the north, the south, and the middle belt area. Now, so that balance gives you a particular, frequency value, which will guarantee that energy is transported uniformly across this grid. So if there's an unbalanced situation, like what happened in January in Akwa Ibom axis, where they said there was an issue with gas supply, that gas supply led to a generation load drop that also automatically led to a partial collapse of the grid.
Okay.
But if there's a SCADA system as that is happening, you could automatically ramp up generation from another spot to augment for that shortfall.
Now, why is this power problem difficult to solve? And though that we've seen some kind of optimism from Adebayo Adelabu, who is the Minister of Power, why is it still difficult to solve? I know the issues there, but with the kind of optimism we've seen, do you think that we are on the right track? Earlier on, I did say during the market analysis that Transco Power is listing today. Of course, Transco Power is a generating, power generating company listing at 240. So that would also help deepen the market, perhaps a bit of investment also into that space. So why is it difficult for us to solve this power problem? That's one. Then number two is that the state, since President Buhari signed that Act,
Electricity Act
last year, how much of state's involvement have we seen there? Because at least it's close to even 1 year now about that. Yes, it's close to that or nearly close to that. For those of you in that space, what are the kind of conversations that you're getting from states? Do states even understand what's happening? Of course, we saw last week what happened in Abia State, for example, with geometric power, Professor Barton Naji's company and all of that. So speak to me about all of this, because the Act empowers the states now to generate, transmit, as well as distribute power.
So the thing is, starting from your first question, the power sector is a highly regulated sector, highly regulated in the context that both from decision-making down to investment in the sector and how you even reimburse, you can get your payback arrangement from your investment and all these things are highly, highly regulated. That is tied to so many indices that even come down to the financials, like your inflation rate, your exchange rate, the volume of energy on the grid to be traded on, and a whole lot of things are actually driving the behavior of the market. Now, so basically, the reason why power has not really made so much move, if I'm to put it in terms of context, between 2005 and now, we're still battling around 4,000, 5,000 megawatts. So, but the actual installed demand from the distribution infrastructure in Nigeria is about 28,000 megawatts. We've not been able to do up to 5,000. So the issue basically is, it has to do with, one, trust in the market. There's an issue that has to do with, the issue of trust is a major issue, in the sense that you see between the regulators, the market participants, the customers at the other end, there's no proper synergy as to how to communicate the incidences or the events of the market to everybody's full understanding. That way they can be able to buy into the process and, of course, support each other or complement each other as the case may be. For instance, the investors go get their money put into the sector, and at the end of the day, they are called all manner of names or labeled as if they're trying to frustrate the country and all of that. These are people that risk their reputations and of course, their investment to put money into the sector by way of privatization in 2013-14. And this investment has not also given them the required dividend expected. The second bit is that the customers on the other side as well are also not responding. If you go to some regions in Nigeria, they have this entitlement mentality that they are not supposed to pay for power, especially when the power stations are settled in their communities. So all those issues have a way of affecting it. Now, from bottom up, the way the value chain is structured, it is a distribution arm that feeds financially to the whole sector. Now, you have a distribution sector that remits about 70% of its revenue to the market. That means whatever they collect, only 70% of what is going to come back to the market. And 70% cannot even take care of the whole cost of the value chain. So that is one bit. The second bit is that on the customer side of it, there's supposed to be investment in metering. The discos have done quite a bit, but we are still around 40% metering debt. That is not enough to guarantee revenue recovery. But if there's a proper, like the minister in December, there was this retreat he put together for the whole value chain, wherein all the participants, both market and non-market participants, came to air their views and opinions on how best to translate this market. That process is coming up with a set of documents that will further guide the market to becoming more efficient. But that will take a while. Distribution business and power business all over the world takes a while. And it takes serious effort from both the policymakers, both the private sector, and of course the citizenry. All right. If you go to countries like Turkey and Co, where they have about 88,000 megawatts for 88 million customer population, there's a lot of concession they have to make. For instance, gas transport costs, they have to subsidize that. They have to provide some form of support for power generating companies to be able to set up the business so that the cost of generating power can be within the range that the customer can be able to afford. Now, coming down to the state market that you talked about, I'm sorry to say, but in Nigeria, we're used to passing the buck. Everybody's always passing the blame to the next person. Before this electricity Act came into being, a lot of argument has always been from some states that I am very particular.
Give us power.
Give us power,
power
want to do
yes,
this.
want to do it
I'm aware that Akwa Ibom State invested in the whole value chain, generation, transmission, and distribution. Some other states also did that. But since the Electrical Act came into 2023, it's only Enugu State that has a policy and a law. As we speak, it's only Enugu State government that has an electricity law, and has also went further to put together an electricity regulatory commission. We are fully involved.
Version of
NEC. We are fully involved in that process, so we know what is happening there. They are very conscious about what they want to achieve, how they want to drive it, what are the processes involved, and what are the kind of collaboration and support they need.
And the states don't have the excuse now because they are getting more naira from FARC, and I'm wondering, we'll interrogate that, but I'm wondering what the states are not, they are not alleviating economic hardship on citizens. They are not even trying to put power together. What are you people doing? They'll just take the money and go to FX market and do all the shenanigans they want to do.
The truth about it is that power business is not a business that you snap your finger and it happens, all right? It takes a process.
Yes, it takes a process, but ours has taken too long a time because other countries too have done it, and they get it right. I understand that there are legacy issues.
Yeah.
I understand that there is this behavior also to the market in terms of an average Nigerian thinks that power is a public utility, it shouldn't be paid for, and all of that. There are issues around the cost and all of. I understand that, but will it take us from since when?
So one of the ways to unbundle that, those constraints is what the Electricity Act has actually done. What the Electricity Act has done basically is to say, okay, I've given you power to go ahead and think around how you want to, expand your electricity market, and technically speaking, the grid, because of the uniform nature of the grid, this is an opportunity for the state to begin to come together and form some form of decentralized grid system. Like what had happened in Aba through geometric power, it's a decentralized power system. So if Enugu State, for instance, has taken the lead in this process, can come up and say, okay, let me set up a power station within a particular cluster in my area, generate power, and use my 3 kV network and wheel it to where I want to wheel it to. You can quickly ramp up power at that network. Even if you decide that, say, probably because of the lack of resources, because there's not much hydro pathways or there's no gas, enough gas reserve in Enugu State to do this, you could collaborate with a state like Imo State, or probably the South can come together and say, okay, let's talk among ourselves. Imo has gas reserves, generate power, Abia generate power, Anambra has a market around the whole of that Nnewi on the axis. It's an industrial cluster that can guarantee revenue back to the system, right? So the state can come together, have like a uniform legislation that enables them to generate, transport, and distribute power within themselves. Of course, with certain, because of the uniformity and socioeconomic characteristics, they could put these things together and quickly ramp up power. But like you also said, it's taking so long for them to put up just policies and get the laws to come on board. Of course, if it takes this long, you can imagine how long it's going to take to actually have full impact in terms of energy to the customers at the last one.
Because for me, if you had a child, let's say in 2005 or even in 2013, how old that child is now.
Of course.
And that child is still in darkness in terms of when you want to put on the light, there's no light. It's something unheard of. And we have smart people, we have, we have the resources at what is wrong with this thing? What is wrong with this power?
I must tell you, which is where I commend the current minister, is that there's actually finance for this process.
Finance,
there's money for this process.
there used to.
There is.
Emmanuel. Oh, this is the first time I'm hearing there's finance.
There's finance.
Because there's been no finance. Even there's been getting intervention from central bank. We've seen different
So the intervention you get from
and
CBN,
all of that. World Bank will say supporting power. But they will say, we don't still have enough money.
So the financing you're talking about is different to what I'm talking about.
So which one are you talking about?
You're talking about the people that are current market participants.
Okay.
I'm talking about the state government, for instance. And a state government can actually approach maybe any of the development institutions and say, look, help me with the process of setting up my market. Then when the market is set up, there may be some quick win projects that you can put together. You don't need to go to CBN for that. You can with World
CBN
Bank.
Will not even give
with World Bank, AFDB.
This CBN is not giving anybody money.
World Bank, AFDB, even private institutions like Infracredit, Chapel and all of that, they have financing for some of these projects. All they needed to see a clear trajectory between when I'm putting in the money and how the money is coming
Okay,
out.
it's
And
going
of
to
course,
come
it's
out.
properly ring-fenced and bankable. The money will come out.
How many megawatts do we really need to serve the needs of this economy? Because
So,
I've heard different
yeah.
stuff. You talked about earlier on installed capacity of about
29,000
28 or
megawatts.
29.
Yeah.
How many megawatts do we need to serve this country?
So, to serve this country effectively, we need more than what is installed already.
Which is
so
more than 29,000.
More than 29,000. And why we say we need more than that is that there's a lot of self-generation happening that is not integrated into the grid. Now, what is currently connected to the grid is the 29,000, which is the aggregate installed transformer capacity from all the distribution company in Nigeria. But you and I know that energy is given to the man that has the money. The discos invest only where they can get their money back. So there's a lot of unserved and underserved communities that are using alternative source of power, probably generators and all of that. So if you ramp all this together, I think Nigeria needs more than 100,000 megawatts. Because if you take the example of Turkey, where they have a population of 88 million, they have 88,000 megawatts. India has about 1.something billion, and they have about 220,000 megawatts. As a matter of fact, their energy offtake in the month of January, the demand for the month of January for India was 222,000 megawatts. So
okay.
if we get the 29,000, what it basically does for us is that it will increase access to the quantity of energy that is being offtaken. Currently, we are doing an average of about 12 hours nationwide from the energy that is being given out, right? With the 20, if we do the 29, we can get it up to like 16 or 18 hours per day. But also, it also provides opportunity for energy access to be given to some other clusters.
Finally, because we've got to go, what's your outlook moving forward, especially with the posture of the minister? He also mentioned that there's underutilization of FG investments in the power sector. So what's your outlook moving forward? Because this power issue is also causing a cost of doing business crisis. There's a crisis that we're not talking about, which is a cost of doing business crisis that's been exacerbated by no power, foreign exchange crisis, inflation, and all of that. So very quickly, we've got to go.
For me, if the first thing we need to do is that we need to send this conversation to the states, let them as quickly as possible begin to ramp up options that are available to them. Secondly is the distribution companies. I'm glad that the minister called two of the discos for a meeting this week to discuss why they are not giving out power. AEDC and Ibadan Disco. That kind of conversation needs to continue to happen. Then I also like the fact that the minister is everywhere talking about financing, talking about efficiency and performance. One of the key issues before now is poor governance and coordination. He is taking the lead in those areas. So basically what he's doing is to say, oh, look, the discourse, you have an issue, come to me. If the next there's a problem, come to me. Let us see who are the problems within the sector. And lastly, for energy access, now that the state electricities are beginning to come in, REA will soon be unbundled to begin to look at the uniqueness of each of the states, and of course be able to devote resources to those states to be able to aggressively attack energy asset that is currently at 47%, which is very, very poor.
Thank you very much for coming.
Thank you, Nancy, for having me.
Thank you. Thank you for watching. In case this is your first time watching us, thank you. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel, drop your comments as well as like, and most of all, share our content.